Good morning, guys. This is Dr. Vivashwan, and today I'm going to explain you about the development of the mesentery. So, topic is development of mesentery. So, first of all, what is mesentery? Say during the development of diaphragm also, we have discussed about mesentery. Mesentery is nothing but a fold of peritoneum. It's nothing but a fold of peritoneum, which is suspending the gut or the gastrointestinal tract in the abdomen, so that it will be stabilized inside the abdomen during during the several processes like the rotation and some other movements takes place inside the GIT during the part of development. Or to stabilize that thing, we need a structure, and this is achieved by a peritoneum surrounding the gut, which is called as the mesentery. So mesentery, it has its own role. It helps in not only in the rotation of gut but also in the stabilization. And there are several congenital anomalies as well, which are associated with this development, which are associated with the rotation of the gut, which takes with the help of the mesentery, superior mesentery artery as the axis. But primarily, let us restrict ourselves to the development of mesentery itself. So this mesentery, we divide broadly, assuming this to be as a abdominal cavity in the development. And here the posteriormost part, consider it to be an adult. If we consider it as an adult abdomen transverse section, then we can see in the posteriormost part, the abdomen and the vertebra, in anterior, you can see the sternum. If you assume this thing that is exactly at the center, we assume it as some kind of a part of the gastrointestinal tract. This part of the gastrointestinal tract, which is exactly at the center, actually this is surrounded by the layer of the peritoneal axis. This is the layer of the peritoneum. So it completely surrounds the gut. The peritoneum layer, it consists of the parietal peritoneum, which is actually forming the outer, it is margining the outer border of the developing gut. But this thing, we consider it as surrounds the part of the GIT and it will be continuous with the parietal peritoneum. This particular part of the peritoneum is called as the visceral peritoneum. This visceral peritoneum itself is nothing but the serosa. If you take the transverse section of the gut, we have 4 layers: serous layer, muscle layer, submucosa, and the mucosa. And the serous layer is actually nothing but the visceral peritoneum. So this is about this particular thing, which is the part of the peritoneum is holding the GIT. This particular thing is called as the mesenteron. Meso is nothing but something which is related to the peritoneum. Enteron is nothing but the gastrointestinal tract. Something which is holding the gut, the enteron in its position is called as mesentery. Similarly, we have some other terminologies as well. We have something called as mesoesophagus. Mesoesophagus, from which the right and the left class of the diaphragm development takes place. Mesoesophagus is something which is holding from part of the peritoneum, which is holding and stabilizing the esophagus, called as the mesoesophagus. And something which is holding and stabilizing the stomach is called as the mesogastrium. And at the same time, something which is holding and stabilizing some other parts of the gastrointestinal tract, something like colon, we call it as mesocolon. When it is something like appendix, we call it as mesoappendix. Likewise, depending on the position, depending on the part of the GIT which is enclosed by this peritoneal coverings, it is named accordingly in that way, in such a manner. So coming to the developmental aspects. So let us consider this thing, let it be the abdominal wall. Assume it has anterior abdominal wall. We have an umbilical opening around here. Let us assume this particular part here, let it be the posterior abdominal wall. Something which is present exactly at the center. Exactly at the center, this particular thing, let us assume it as the developing gut. Developing gut. It is like that. Then we have something, the peritoneal folds. The peritoneal folds will be like the mesenteron, something which is holding the GIT. Generally, it's a broad term. Mesentery is a broad term. Something which is holding the gut is the mesentery. And mesentery we have the dorsal mesogastrium and ventral mesogastrium. And from the dorsal mesogastrium, from the dorsal mesentron or the ventral mesentron, and from the dorsal mesentron of the esophagus, we will be receiving the right under of the diaphragm. This is the dorsal mesentron. Particular thing, it is anterior, so it is ventral mesentron. This will be the posterior abdominal wall. It will be become dorsal mesentron. The gut will be a continuous structure. So this is because we are studying in a longitudinal section form. So this is nothing but this part of the peritoneum is nothing but the ventral mesentron. And this particular part is nothing but the dorsal mesentron. So what are all the different structures which are developing from the ventral mesentron, and what are all the structures which are developing from the dorsal mesentron? So from the ventral mesentron, we can actually you can see the developing liver. Liver will be developing from the ventral mesentron. From the dorsal mesentron, we will be seeing the developing spleen. And there is one more thing called as pancreas. Pancreas has a dorsal pancreatic bud as well as a ventral pancreatic bud. So dorsal pancreatic bud, it particularly develops from dorsal mesogastrium. And the ventral pancreatic bud develops from the ventral mesogastrium. Later on, these two will be fusing. We will discuss detail about those things in the present session when we are going to discuss about the development of the pancreas. But presently, let us focus on the mesentery itself. So this is liver, and this is the spleen, and this is the dorsal pancreatic, this is the ventral pancreatic bud, and this is the dorsal pancreatic bud. If we consider liver, if you study the gross anatomy of the liver, we have certain the ligaments, the ligaments which are stabilizing the kidney. Which are stabilizing the liver. So what are those? So we have already heard it in the gross anatomy, different names. One is something called as the falciparum ligament. Falciparum ligament. Falciparum ligament. And there is one more thing. If you proceed more and more caudally, this falciparum ligament, it is called as the coronary ligament. On the other hand, at this particular portion, this particular area will be developed to form something called as a stomach. Stomach, and then continues as a liver. This particular area, the lesser curvature of the stomach. The lesser curvature of the stomach. So there will be a peritoneal folding which is having its attachments right from the hilum of the kidney or the porta hepatis. From there will be a peritoneal folding which is connecting the hilum of the kidney to the lesser curvature of the stomach. So basically, from the ventral mesentron, 3 ligaments associated with the liver will be developing. One is the falciparum ligament. If it proceeds caudally, falciparum ligament itself is known as the coronary ligament. And if you go towards the other sides, there is something which is called as developing from the gut is called as stomach. And the lesser curvature of the stomach is actually in continuation with the porta hepatis to a fold of mesentery. This is nothing but the lesser omentum. The lesser omentum. So here, if we have already studied that the anterior free margin of the lesser omentum will forms the foramen of Adaites or foramen of Winslow. There is something called as foramen of Adaites or foramen of Winslow. So actually, it is nothing but it is an opening into the lesser side. So when you dissect the cadaver, something what you see, as soon as you open the give a midline incision and just open the abdominal and the pelvis region. Something what you see grossly is the greater side, and something which is behind this lesser omentum is the lesser side. So keep your finger inside the lesser side, and if you just palpate it anteriorly, the foramen of that this particular foramen to which our finger can be inserted is called as foramen of Aditus, also called as foramen of Winslow, or foramen into the lesser side in a simple manner. So the anterior free margin of the lesser omentum, it actually forms the anterior boundary of this lesser omentum forms the anterior boundary of this foramen of the Aditus or the foramen of the Winslow. So this is about the structures which are derivating from the ventral mesogastric, ventral mesenteron. So coming to the dorsal mesenteron. So the dorsal mesenteron, there is something called as spleen. This is a very important structure, and the part of the peritoneum which is supporting spleen from the stomach, we have two parts. One is called as the gastrosplenic ligament. Gastrosplenic ligament is something which is connecting the greater curvature of the stomach to the developing spleen. Similarly, we have something called as the lieno-renal ligament or the spleno-renal ligament. Actually, in kidney, it is something which is connecting the kidney and the spleen more posteriorly. Actually, kidney, it is actually a retroperitoneal organ. Kidney during development, it will be like, it will be developed in the iliac region. The iliac region later on during its development takes place in the iliac region. Later on, they will be gradually start ascending, and ultimately they will reach the lumbar position. So this process occurs during the development, and something which is helping this thing is on bilateral. Not only the left kidney but also right kidney is also, both are retroperitoneal. They are formed in the lumbar region, and then they will be ascending to, they form in the iliac region, and then they will be ascending into the lumbar region. So there is a congenital anomaly called as horseshoe kidney. Horseshoe kidney is nothing but two kidneys on each side. We have the left kidney, we have the right kidney. The caudal ends of both the kidneys will be fusing with each other, resulting in the formation of a kidney which is something like a horseshoe shape. This is called as horseshoe kidney. So this horseshoe kidney, if it is there on the other side, assuming it is the other kidney, that is assuming that the left and this will be right, so it develops in the iliac region, and then there will be ascent. So there is something called as horseshoe kidney, in which this is just a schematic diagram. Originally doesn't look like that. I want to just correlate everything in a single diagram. Okay? So the caudal poles of both the developing kidneys, they will be fused to each other, and they will gradually start ascending. So this ascending, in case of horseshoe kidney, the ascending won't happen, because this ascent of kidney is actually, it's inhabited by the branches of the abdominal aorta called as the inferior mesenteric vessels. Abdominal aorta and the inferior vena cava we have here, and inferior mesenteric vessels, particularly inferior mesenteric vein, will be actually obstructing the ascent of the kidneys in case of a congenital anomaly called as a horseshoe kidney. Okay, that's not related to the present context, but let me come over that in some other time. So we're discussing about the kidney. Something which is connecting the kidney and the spleen is the spleno-renal ligament. And here in the posteriormost part, we have an abdominal aorta. This aorta is actually a retroperitoneal structure, but its branch, here we have a celiac trunk. From the celiac trunk, we have a splenic artery which is arising, and this splenic artery is actually supplying the spleen. And there is one more thing. The splenic artery gives a branch called as short gastric arteries. The short gastric arteries are the branches of the splenic arteries, and they will be supplying the stomach, the greater curvature area of the stomach. So there is a common one-liner MCQ, which can be one-liner in the article MCQ. The contents of this gastrosplenic ligament is nothing but the short gastric artery. Short gastric artery, branch of splenic artery, is internal branch of abdominal, and the celiac trunk of the abdominal aorta will be enclosing something called as the short gastric artery, so that it can supply the greater curvature of the stomach. So it is something like this. we have completed about the liver, spleen, and the ligaments which are associated with the liver as well as the spleen. And there is some tricky question which will be often framed by the examiners for the various competitive exams. One of the recent NEET examination, it has been asked what are all the structures, what are all the ligaments of the liver which are not developed from the ventral mesentery. The options are, like falciparum ligament is option A, the coronary ligament will be option B, and even this the lesser omentum will be option C, and there is even something called as the umbilical, something called as the ligamentum teres hepatis. Fully, if you want to elaborate. So the correct answer is ligamentum teres hepatis. This ligamentum teres hepatis, it is not at all related to the peritoneum. Actually, during the embryological conditions, we have a placenta. We have a placenta. So from this placenta, there will be something called as a umbilical vein. We have a umbilical vein. The umbilical vein will be connected to the liver, and then it will be actually, it will be in the rudimentary form, and later in the later stages of the life, that's obliterated umbilical vein. Normally in the umbilical cord, initially 2 arteries and 2 veins will be there. Later on, first only the right umbilical vein will be disappearing. Later on, the left only persists, left umbilical vein persists. This later on will be obliterated, and this obliterated left umbilical vein is nothing but this ligamentum teres hepatis. See, umbilical vein generally carries deoxygenated blood, but umbilical vein, even though it is called as a vein, it carries oxygenated blood from the placenta into the fetus during the embryological stage. This umbilical vein, the left umbilical vein, is present in the liver later as the obliterated umbilical vein forming the ligamentum teres hepatis, actually carries the oxygenated blood. Even though it is a vein, it carries oxygenated blood from the placenta to the fetus. So this thing I would like to, this is one of the MCQ. Check in the NEET examination. So we have discussed about the spleen and the liver and the kidneys, the ascent of the kidneys, these things, and one more thing which I would like to discuss about the pancreas. It will be covered in the same diagram. About all the other structures like liver, spleen, and the kidneys, the relationship, everything. And presently, I think only one thing: the anterior abdominal hormone, the ambulances, and the blood developing gut. The developing gut. We have something called as the ventral. Ventral, the anterior abdominal also ventral. The ventral, the dorsal side we have a dorsal recentrum. The ventral recentrum. This is the dorsal recentrum, and this is the gut or enteron. So is the name recentrum enteron. So during the process of development, the midgut, it actually undergoes rotation, and the midgut actually, why there is something called as physiological hernia. Physiological hernia normally happens in each and every human being in the developmental conditions. During the process of development, the midgut will be elongated. It will form several coils of ileum and even the jejunum and all these structures for which there will be no room for the development in the abdominal cavity. So normally these things will be exviscerating out or herniating out through the umbilicus. But this is called as physiological hernia. It happens to each and everyone, but whenever they fail to return back, they will be actually attaining back their own position after physiological hernia. But whenever they fail to return back, it results in a condition. That particular condition is called as omphalocele, which later during the part of the midgut we'll be studying about. Presently, will study mainly about the development of the pancreas, because all events during development, the developmental anatomy, we can understand it clear by correlating different things. Gross anatomy, we have to concentrate only on one particular area. Coming to embryology, unless we unless we coincide or unless we synchronize it with some other surrounding structures, their development, we cannot understand it. So that's the reason why I'm connecting with all the other structures. Now I'm going to tell about the pancreas. Development of pancreas. Pancreas, the development of pancreas takes from two birds. The two birds are the dorsal pancreatic bird as well as the ventral pancreatic bird. So this will be the dorsal pancreatic bird. There will be ventral pancreatic bird. So during the process of development, these two pancreatic birds will be fused with each other, and they will form the so-called adult pancreas. So if you see clearly, I'll draw an another side. So if you see, assuming this to be the stomach, developing stomach, and this will be the anterior aspect. This will be the first, the posterior aspect. It's a developing condition, so we can use this term anterior and posterior in case of stomach. But in adult stomach, the lesser curvature to be the right side and the greater curvature to be towards the left side. Anterior and posterior terms cannot be used. If you are assuming this particular part to be as a developing stomach, we have this thing as an anterior or a ventral side. This thing is the posterior or the dorsal side. So we have a bird. This is the ventral pancreatic bird, and this is the dorsal pancreatic bird. So actually, this dorsal pancreatic bird, this is the ventral pancreatic bird. This dorsal pancreatic bird, this forms the major mass of the pancreas. It forms the major part of the dorsal pancreatic bird, forms the major part of the head, neck, body, and tail. Then what the ventral pancreatic bird gives rise to? That's ventral pancreatic bird. The ventral pancreatic bird will give rise to the very small portion of head. And very important thing, something called as an uncinate process. So what happens? Let us talk about the uncinate process later, but let us see what happens. The ventral pancreatic bird and dorsal pancreatic. One is on the ventral side, one is on the dorsal side. So how will these structures will be united with each other? During the process of rotation only, the ventral pancreatic bird will be coming close to the dorsal pancreatic bird. Actually, it will be like a diverticulum. The ventral pancreatic bird, it will be like a diverticulum. Even before it's coming to the dorsal aspect, the ventral pancreatic bird, present in the ventral nasal bone, will be developing like two projections like structures. These are called as the diverticulum. The ventral pancreatic bird diverticulum. So from this dorsal pancreatic bird, later dorsal pancreatic bird will get the head, the majority of the portion of the head, and the neck and the body and the tail of the pancreas. Then this ventral pancreatic bird, after coming to this ventral receptor, that will be forming the minor. Let us, I'm drawing to the blue part, or the red part. Let us. The dorsal pancreatic bird will form the minor part of the head, and there is something called as an uncinate process. After the ventral pancreatic bird reaching the dorsal esophageal, it gives rise to the smaller part of the head and a very important structure called as the uncinate process. So this is the uncinate process. This is the head. Majority of the head is developed from the dorsal pancreatic bird, and the minority of it will be developed from the ventral pancreatic bird. This uncinate process is purely developed from the ventral or the anterior pancreatic bird. Then we have some other structures like neck, body and the tail of the pancreas, all of which are developed from the dorsal pancreatic bud. So this is about the development of the pancreas. Here I would like to discuss some of the developmental anomalies of the pancreas. So developmental anomalies of the pancreas. We will be discussing only two important things. One is called as the pancreatic division. Another thing is alveolar pancreas. Alveolar pancreas. Pancreatic division. What is pancreatic division? Whenever the dorsal pancreatic bud and the ventral pancreatic bud, the ventral pancreatic bud, it comes to the dorsal side and later they both will fuse and they use something called as the adult pancreas. Whenever they both fail to fuse with each other, at that particular thing we will encounter a situation. At that particular thing we will encounter a situation called as pancreatic division. In this pancreatic, the dorsal, the part which is developed from the dorsal pancreatic bud has its own ducts. So if you open it here, the dorsal, the part of the pancreas which is developed from the internal pancreatic bud, it has its own duct. It has its own duct. So usually what happens is this particular portion. Usually what happens is this particular these two, after unification of the dorsal pancreatic bud as well as the ventral pancreatic bud, the ducts won't remain as it. The ducts, they won't remain as such. So they will be getting obliterated. But this particular part, it will be like this. Look at the diagram carefully. So after fusion of both pancreatic masses which are emerging from both the dorsal and ventral pancreatic bud, the main pancreatic duct, which is also called as duct of Gerson, will be formed in such a way that this particular part will become obliterated. This will not be there anymore. This particular part of the dorsal pancreatic duct will not be there anymore. And this particular part of the ventral pancreatic bud will not be there anymore. Those things will be obliterated. So in case of pancreatic division, this forms the main pancreatic duct in adults, which works with the common hepatic duct, and then it forms the ampulla of water and then opens into the second part of the duodenum, the major duodenal papillae. We have studied in the cross anatomy. So assuming this to be the second part of the duodenum, we have a major duodenal papillae, into which the common bile duct, which is formed by the unification of the common hepatic duct as well as the common pancreatic duct. So that will be opening into the major duodenal papillae in the second part of the duodenum, major duodenal papillae in the second part of the duodenum. So what happens here? In case of pancreatic division, these two ducts fail to fuse, so the pancreatic masses will fail to fuse, and each pancreatic mass which is developed from the respective pancreatic bud will have its own separate openings. They will have their separate openings. The ventral pancreatic bud, the ventral pancreatic bud has its own opening, dorsal pancreatic bud has its own opening. Which is developed from the dorsal pancreatic duct is the main pancreatic duct, that is called as the duct of Gerson, or the main pancreatic duct. And this particular thing, the minor from the ventral pancreatic bud is used to this accessory pancreatic duct. This is the main pancreatic duct. This particular thing is called as the accessory pancreatic duct. It is also called as duct of Santorini. This particular thing is called as duct of Gerson, or the main pancreatic duct, and this particular thing is called as duct of Santorini. So if it is like normal conditions, both will be fused. We have only one duct that will open into the major duodenal papilla in the second part of the duodenum. What if two pancreatic buds, if they fail to fuse, we have two separate openings for the pancreas. So one will be in such conditions, in the second part of the duodenum, we have one more structure called as the minor duodenal papilla. Minor duodenal papilla in the this is minor, this is major. Minor duodenal papilla in the D2, that will be open. So this is about the congenital anomaly called as the pancreatic EBC. Then we have one more thing called as annular pancreas. This congenital anomaly, we need to look back again. We understood that the ventral pancreatic bulb, which is there on the ventral aspect, it during the process of development will be reaching to the other side, and then they will be fusing. And we also studied that the ventral pancreatic bulb, before rotating, it is developed in the ventral mesentery, before reaching the dorsal aspect, so there will be diverticular, this particular diverticular will be there, which will be shattered. So during the process of this rotation, the ventral pancreatic bulb, it may sometimes, because of this diverticular, they may get hooked up here. This is the ventral pancreatic bulb. This is the ventral pancreatic bulb, and the diverticular of this ventral pancreatic bulb, they will be just like hooked to the small intestine and the duodenum. And later on, this duodenum, they will be just the diverticular will be just fixing. So they may fail to fuse, they may fail to just separate out from this duodenum. In such condition, annular, what does annular means? Annular is something like a ring or a wall. It is here also, the two diverticular of the ventral pancreatic, they are forming a ring around the developing the duodenum, and that particular condition is called as the annular pancreas, because the head of the pancreas, the part of the head of the pancreas which is developing from the ventral pancreatic gland, because of this diverticula, they will be forming a ring around the developing duodenum, and that starts compressing the developing duodenum. That is the reason why this particular thing is called as annular pancreas. And because of this encircling around the developing duodenum, the duodenum may be often compressed, and that particular thing we call it as duodenal atresia. Duodenal atresia. So child which is born with this annular pancreas may also, in many of the cases, they have been reported with this duodenal atresia as well. So duodenal atresia, the child will be presenting with feeding difficulties and vomiting. They will be presenting to the pediatrician with this particular condition. Immediately, the pediatrician will go for the further investigation. So this is about the development of mesentery. We have discussed two topics. One thing is development of mesentery, and second thing is the development of the pancreas and the congenital anomalies. So this is the end of the present session. We will discuss further about the other relevant GIT embryology related aspects. Thank you very much.